A crisp autumn breeze whispered through the streets as a white couple, Sarah and Michael Reynolds, wrestled with a secret they carried like a heavy weight in their hearts. They had discovered a tiny black baby girl wrapped in a faded pink blanket on the front steps of a small community hospital in Philadelphia in 1994. The infant's dark eyes, curious and bright, stared up at them from that makeshift nest, and without hesitation, Sarah scooped her into her arms. The couple, childless themselves and desperate for connection, assumed the child had been abandoned by a mother overwhelmed by circumstances. They named her Lily and brought her home, intending to love her, protect her, and eventually formalize adoption. But as days turned into weeks, uncertainty began gnawing at them. They had no legal claim, no satisfaction that they were giving Lily the future she deserved. Guilt bloomed in Sarah's chest like a poison flower. Their home, a modest row house on a quiet block, became a cocoon of stolen joy and shadowed conscience. They made the choice to raise Lily as their own while using lies to cover their tracks, telling neighbors they had fostered her from the hospital. In their minds, keeping her safe justified the deceit, even as truth frayed around the edges of their lives. Lily's first birthday arrived with a small celebration. Neighbors brought balloons, homemade cakes, and cheerful congratulations. Sarah and Michael plastered forced smiles onto their faces as they watched Lily babble and crawl, reaching for colorful streamers hanging from the ceiling. Sometimes, Sarah caught herself searching for something more: child support checks, welfare notes, medical forms, anything that might indicate a biological mother. Nightly, she pored over newspaper birth announcements, local adoption listings, even visiting church orphanages, hoping to uncover a clue. But those efforts yielded nothing. Each dawn began with renewed determination to provide Lily with a stable childhood, while each dusk ended in trembling regret. Michael, once a promising student driven by ambition, found his career simmering into mediocrity. Each promotion he missed, each late-night bill notice slipped under the door, reminded him of the cost of their secret. They had built a fragile life on a lie that threatened to shatter at any moment. Over the years, Lily blossomed into a bright, joyful child. Her laughter pealed through hallways like silver bells, echoing down blocks where other children played. On neighborhood basketball courts, she chased after colorful balls with unmatched enthusiasm. She excelled in school, quickly becoming the teacher's favorite with her eager hand raised, offering answers before questions fully formed. Sarah and Michael nurtured her talents: piano lessons, art classes, swimming. Friends marveled at Lily's grace and intelligence, though some whispered behind closed doors about the discrepancy between Lily's skin and her parents'. Sarah often forced a laugh, dismissing suspicions as innocent curiosity. When prom invitations arrived for Michael at his accounting firm, he arrived with Lily by his side, standing tall as her proud father. Their household hummed with the normalcy of weekend soccer games and holiday dinners. Even the occasional uneasy glance from a neighbor could not break the illusion of a conventional family. In 2004, a decade had passed. Lily, now 10, had grown, too tall to curl up in Sarah's lap during bedtime stories. Winter nights found Sarah tucking her under heavy blankets, planting kisses on her forehead before drifting off into restless sleep. She woke each morning with the same dread. What if someone discovered the truth? Meanwhile, Michael had climbed just enough within the finance department to feel the warm glow of achievement. Yet worry lines creased his forehead more than ever. He watched Lily graduate from middle school with tears in his eyes, shaking hands, with teachers who spoke lovingly of her bright future. Their home felt full, the walls lined with trophies and framed photographs, graduation ceremonies, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. But each photo reminded Sarah of the night she discovered Lily on the hospital steps, the cold concrete beneath her tiny body, the anonymous visitor who had left her there. Memories resurfaced in dreams: the muffled hush of frantic footsteps, the soft wail of a newborn, the desperate glance of a startled nurse. The guilt swelled within Sarah until it pounded in her chest like a second heartbeat. By 2014, Lily stood on the brink of adulthood. She had grown into a young woman of dazzling confidence, her ebony skin glowing like polished mahogany against the world. Her dreams were as unapologetic as her laughter. She planned to study law, to fight injustices that scarred society. Sarah and Michael supported her every step, though each triumph panged their conscience. They had no legal papers, no adoption records, just a birth certificate listing Lily's birthplace as their home when, in truth, she had been discovered on a hospital doorstep. Sarah registered her as their daughter in good faith, but dismissed the uneasiness that nestled in her gut. Lily applied to top universities, excelling in debates and community service. When acceptance letters began arriving, Sarah and Michael toasted with champagne, tears of pride mingling with salty guilt that slipped down their cheeks. They celebrated Lily's scholarship to a prestigious college in New York, reminding themselves that they were giving her more than she could have hoped for. Lily moved into her dorm, greeted by wide-eyed freshmen and bustling campus life. The day she left, Sarah held her tight, whispering prayers under her breath, hoping the world would be kind and that their secret would remain buried. In the years that followed, Lily's voice rose in power. She became a beacon for civil rights, speaking at rallies and organizing community protests. Sarah and Michael followed her journey from a distance, proud yet fearful. They watched as news outlets covered her rallies, her name spreading across social media. Lily's story, of a black woman raised by white parents who believed she was abandoned, touched hearts around the country. Sarah's nights became restless once more. She feared that someone would connect Lily's birth story in the press to their own secret. Michael read articles online, saved clips, and cataloged every mention of Lily's origins. Yet no one suspected Sarah and Michael. They remained just proud parents on the sidelines, offering supportive comments on Facebook, sending care packages during finals, and celebrating birthdays with virtual calls. Their faces beamed with joy as Lily accepted awards, her acceptance speeches laced with gratitude for the parents she believed had rescued her. Their relief was shallow, their happiness laced with ice. Every accolade Lily received was a reminder of the night they found her, of the anonymity that bound them to deception. By 2024, Lily had graduated with honors from law school and moved back to Philadelphia, determined to give back to the community that had shaped her. She joined a nonprofit legal clinic serving underprivileged families, her passion shining brighter than ever. Sarah and Michael had retired to a small house in the suburbs. Their golden years were peaceful, but hollow. The walls still held Lily's childhood drawings and trophies, but the hush of empty rooms pressed against them. They ingrained themselves with volunteer work, hoping that service would soothe their remorse. Yet they could not forget. Every evening they discussed a plan to come clean to Lily, an apology, an explanation, the truth about her beginnings. But each day passed without the courage to act. They feared losing her trust, her love, everything they cherished. Instead, they wrote letters they never sent and rehearsed speeches they never gave. The morning of Michael's funeral in June 2024 felt heavy with summer heat. Michael had succumbed to a heart condition that, in the end, offered no warning. Sarah stood in their modest living room, picking out a simple black dress, brushing stray gray hairs from her face. Neighbors offered condolences, friends brought casseroles, and the community rallied around her, offering solace. But nothing prepared Sarah for the sight standing at the back of the funeral home when she arrived. Near the doors, leaning against a marble column, stood Lily, elegant, poised, and achingly familiar. Her skin glowed in the soft glow of candles, her eyes wide with emotions Sarah could not yet read. She wore a simple black dress, her long braids cascading down her shoulders. Sarah's heart clutched as if frozen in ice when Lily turned and locked eyes with her. The sight of her daughter, now a full-grown woman, at her husband's funeral, stopped Sarah's breath. The years crashed down upon her like a tidal wave. In the silence, memories flickered. The night Lily had been discovered, the urgent whispers in the hospital corridor, the hurried drive home. Sarah's vision blurred as she rushed toward Lily, but as she drew closer, disbelief shattered her focus. It was not her Lily standing there. Instead, it was another woman, a stranger in every way, yet luminous, graceful, and bearing an uncanny resemblance to Sarah herself. The woman's eyes were the same shade of deep brown as Lily's, framed by long lashes, but her features were sharper, more mature. Sarah staggered to a stop, her world tilting on its axis. The funeral attendees parted, a path forming around Sarah as she inched closer to the woman. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Isn't she Lily? Look at her hair. She looks like her daughter." To everyone's astonishment, the woman approached Sarah, her voice soft but steady. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said. Sarah felt her knees weaken and sank into the nearest chair, choking on a cry. The woman placed a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. Sarah trembled, realizing in that moment that this was not Lily. This was someone else entirely. A stunned silence blanketed the room. Friends and family exchanged perplexed glances, unsure what to make of the encounter. Sarah's mind raced, but before she could form words, the woman spoke again. "My name is Mariah Bennett. I came to pay respects because my mother and father were named Michael and Sarah Reynolds." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The room spun as the realization dawned. Mariah Bennett was her biological daughter, the child she and Michael had abandoned 30 years ago. In that instant, all of Sarah's guilt, decades of hidden shame, coalesced into a singular, crushing revelation. Mariah's words cut through the quiet. "I just learned today that my parents, Michael and Sarah Reynolds, passed away in a car accident." Sarah's sorrow doubled. She recognized the twisted irony of speaking to a daughter who had grieved parents who did not know her existence. The crowd looked on, stricken, as Sarah's knees buckled. Mariah caught her, tears spilling down her cheeks. As Lily's unexpected presence swirled into the background, Sarah felt as if two worlds collided inside her. One was the life she lived, raising a child in deception. The other, the life she abandoned, leaving a daughter to be raised by strangers and kin hoping for scraps of love. Mariah's mother had died in childbirth, and her father, bankrupt and ill, had struggled to provide for her. She had been raised by her grandmother in a cramped apartment, visiting hospitals and orphanages, searching for answers about her parents. Just 2 weeks ago, Mariah had dug up adoption records, scoured public archives, and tracked down a vague address that matched Sarah's. She arrived in Philadelphia determined to find closure, only to learn that her biological father and mother had both passed away. So she came to the funeral, longing for a connection, a marker of the life they might have had. Sarah, sitting motionless, could not find words. Lily rushed forward, confusion clouding her eyes. Cutting through the murmur of the crowd, Lily's gaze locked onto the woman standing beside Sarah. Recognition and disbelief mingled on her face. She stared at Mariah, the stranger who mirrored her, and Sarah's arms wrapped around Lily protectively. The funeral home seemed to dissolve into a blur as Sarah struggled to speak. She managed one trembling sentence. I have to explain." She placed a shaky hand on Lily's cheek, tears slipping from her eyes. Lily, hurt and bewildered, whispered, "Mom, I don't understand." Sarah's legs threatened to give out, but she steadied herself, determined to face the nightmare she had created. Mariah knelt beside Sarah and Lily, her voice trembling, but resolute. "I need to know why you left me." Sarah opened her mouth, but no sound emerged. Michael's coffin stood draped in white lilies, a haunting reminder of a life cut short. Friends and family gathered closer, sensing the gravity of the moment. No one had expected this revelation at a funeral. The air felt thick with anticipation as Sarah took a breath, ready to lay bare 30 years of guilt. She began haltingly, voice quivering. 30 years ago, I gave birth to a baby girl at this hospital. We were young and scared. Your father, and I thought we couldn't provide for you. We left you in the hospital's care, believing you would have a better life than we could offer." Mariah's eyes braked with tears, her lips quivering. Lily's hand found Sarah's, squeezing tightly, as if bracing herself for further truth. Sarah continued, "I never stopped loving you. I regretted every single day. But I didn't have the courage to come back." She turned to Lily. I adopted another baby girl after I left the hospital, and I raised her as my own. I named her Lily. Lily's heart seemed to collapse. She stared at Sarah, mouth open, tears streaming freely. The realization that her mother had abandoned a different daughter felt like a betrayal so deep it might never heal. Mariah, tears glistening on her cheeks, whispered, "All my life, I wondered why you left me. I thought maybe you forgot. But I never stopped hoping." She rose, offering her hand to Sarah. For a long moment, Sarah couldn't move. Guilt and shame crashed through her like a tsunami. She flinched from the touch, her fingers trembling. Then, slowly, she took Mariah's hand. Lily sat between them, arms wrapped around each of their waists, forming an unspoken bond between the three women. The hush in the room was deafening. Neighbors and relatives watched in stunned silence as the trio embraced. Some wept openly, others looked away with compassion. A single bell from the church down the street told the hour, echoing through the walls. Time seemed to pause. When they let go, Sarah turned to Lily, voice barely audible. "I am so sorry. I never meant to hurt you. I wanted to protect you but ended up betraying you." Lily's gaze flickered between Sarah and Mariah, confusion and pain swirling in her eyes. She struggled to speak. "You raised me knowing they might come looking for me. Why didn't you tell me?" Her words felt like arrows piercing Sarah's heart. Sarah's voice cracked. "I was afraid. Afraid of losing you, of losing her, of losing everything." Lily's tears fell freely. She looked at Mariah, astonishment and curiosity etching her features. "And you? Why did you come today?" Mariah's calm voice replied. "I wanted to see the woman who gave me life even if she no longer wanted me. I needed to know who my parents were before I said goodbye to them today." Lily's jaw tightened. Suddenly, the funeral home walls felt too small to contain the raw emotions coursing through the room. Michael's closest friend, David Parker, tall man with a graying beard, approached cautiously, kneeling beside the women. "Sarah, do you want me to call someone?" His voice was gentle, but the implication hung heavy. Lawyers, social services, scandal. Sarah shook her head, eyes closed, tears blurring her vision. "No, this is something I have to face on my own." David placed a hand on her shoulder and nodded. He rose, addressing the gathered mourners. "I think it's best we give them a moment." One by one, attendees backed away, leaving a concentric circle around Lily, Sarah, and Mariah. Outside, summer sunshine streamed through windows, casting halos on the polished floor. The hollow echo of footsteps receded. Finally, just the three of them remained. Lily spoke first, her voice soft but firm. "I don't know what to believe anymore. You told me I was abandoned by a mother who didn't want me, but I was loved by you. Now I find out there's someone else you abandoned. How do I make sense of this?" Sarah's gaze landed on Mariah, studying her features. The same high cheekbones, the same proud chin, the same expressive eyebrows. She saw in Mariah everything Lily might have been if fate had written a different story. Guilt twisted her insides. "I was young," Sarah whispered. "I didn't know how to love or protect you. I was scared, and I made the worst choice of my life, but I thought by giving you up you might have a chance." Mariah's tears spilled again. She closed her eyes briefly, inhaled deeply, and nodded. "I understand why you did it, but it still hurts. I've spent my life feeling like a ghost, wondering if anybody out there remembered me." Her voice cracked on the last word. Sarah's tears fell faster, as if trying to make up for 30 years of sorrow. She reached out, lightly touching Mariah's cheek. "I am so sorry." Lily's hand squeezed Sarah's, but her eyes remained fixed on Mariah. Time stretched. The funeral home felt suspended between past and future, grief and revelation. Sarah felt the weight of her choices crushing her, yet in that moment, as her two daughters stood before her, she glimpsed a sliver of redemption. She spoke again, voice steadying. "I can't erase what happened. I can't bring you back the years you lost, but I want to make things right." She glanced between Lily and Mariah, her heart aching with love and regret for both. Lily stood, walking toward Mariah. Their faces mirrored one another in shock and curiosity. Tears blurred Lily's vision as she extended her arms. Mariah hesitated, but then embraced Lily. The two sisters, one raised with love by Sarah and Michael, the other raised by grandparents in the foster system, clung together, tears and trembling breaths intermingling. Sarah fell to her knees in front of them, hands clasped together, sobbing. A gentle knock on the door heralded David's return. He peeked in, saw the three women enveloped in an emotional embrace, and closed the door quietly. No words could penetrate that intimate moment. Outside, the world resumed its rhythm, unaware that within those walls a fractured family was attempting to heal. Eventually, Lily and Mariah untangled themselves. They stood facing Sarah, who still knelt before them, tears streaming. Sarah rose shakily, voice trembling with humility. "If you can ever find it in your hearts to forgive me, I promise I will spend the rest of my life making up for what I did." Lily's eyes burned with pain but softened as she looked at her mother. "I need time," she said. "Time to figure out who I am without you in my life." Mariah nodded. "I need time too. But I came today wanting to know my parents, and I found you. I found my sister. That means something." Sarah reached out, taking both their hands, her voice unwavering. "We'll take all the time you need. I'll answer any questions. I'll do whatever it takes." In the days that followed, Sarah's state of mind was a whirlwind of guilt, hope, and fear. She moved through her husband's estate settlement, sold their house, and found a small apartment closer to the city center. She met with counselors and started to learn what it meant to be accountable for past mistakes. She scheduled dinners with Lily and Mariah, wanting to rebuild trust as best she could. Each meeting was tentative, at times awkward, tears flowing, angry words left unspoken. Lily struggled with betrayal and confusion, while Mariah struggled with grief and heartbreak. They asked Sarah questions that cut deep. Why did she choose to keep Lily over Mariah? What made her think she had the right to decide who deserved a family? Sarah's answers were halting, often incoherent but always suffused with remorse. She told them how young and naive she had been, how terrified she felt, and how she believed she was saving one child at the expense of another. Over takeout, dinners, and cups of tea, the three women began to share pieces of their lives. Lily's triumphs in law school, Mariah's achievements as a community organizer, Sarah's regrets and hopes. The cracks in their relationship were still wide, but threads of understanding took root. Months passed. Lily, ever determined, moved back in with Sarah temporarily while she prepared for the bar exam. Mariah often visited, bringing homemade meals and stories from her life. They began to stitch together a fragile tapestry of family. On a quiet February afternoon, the three of them sat around a small kitchen table, sharing laughter over overcooked pasta and cheap wine. Sarah felt a lightness she hadn't known in years, though tempered by the knowledge that forgiveness was not guaranteed. Lily looked at Mariah and spoke softly. "I still have questions, but I want to get to know you." Mariah smiled ruefully. "I want that too." Sarah reached across the table, taking both their hands in hers. "I love you both," she said, simply, and in those words she pledged to build something new out of a lifetime of mistakes. By spring, Lily had passed the bar, and Mariah had launched a scholarship fund for young women of color. They decided to combine efforts, creating a non-profit in Michael's honor to support abandoned children and promote foster care reform. Sarah volunteered as a board member, dedicating her spare time to sharing her story and raising awareness. Though the specter of the past lingered, each day offered a chance for healing. On a bright afternoon, the three of them, mother and two daughters, stood together outside the very hospital where Sarah had found Mariah 30 years prior. They placed a bouquet of white lilies at the foot of the steps, honoring Michael's memory and acknowledging the journey that brought them here. As cameras captured the moment for a local news segment, Sarah squeezed Lily's hand, who squeezed back before turning and wrapping arms around Mariah. The three embraced in front of reporters, their tears mingling with laughter and hope. The headline the next day read, "Family Torn Apart by Secrets Finds Healing 3 Decades Later." Through the seasons that followed, the bond between Sarah, Lily, and Mariah deepened. They spent holidays celebrating in a blended fashion, Christmas mornings filled with pancakes and laughter, Thanksgiving dinners where each shared a memory of Michael. They held birthday parties side by side, the years marking different milestones, Lily's 30th, Mariah's 28. Sarah often watched them with awe, marveling at their resilience and capacity for forgiveness. The nonprofit flourished, touching hundreds of families and finding homes for neglected children. Sarah traveled to conferences to speak about adoption ethics, using her experience as both a cautionary tale and a story of redemption. Lily and Mariah became co-directors of the nonprofit, their shared purpose forging a sibling bond that felt unbreakable. They worked tirelessly to change policies to ensure no child would endure the uncertainty that once defined their lives. On the 10th anniversary of Michael's funeral, Sarah, Lily, and Mariah returned to the funeral home steps. They stood together, hand in hand, a picture of unity and forgiveness. Sarah placed a single white rose on a memorial plaque for Michael, as Lily and Mariah did the same. The breeze whispered through the streets, gentle and hopeful. Memories of that fateful day 30 years ago lingered, but they no longer held the power to destroy. Instead, they fueled purpose and compassion. Lily and Mariah turned to face each other, tears glistening in their eyes. They embraced, two sisters, once strangers now bound by love and shared history. Sarah watched them, tears of pride and relief rolling down her cheeks. In that moment, she felt a quiet peace, proof that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, truth, and unconditional love.